What if the most terrifying creatures in modern horror weren't created but channeled? Cthulhu, Nyarlathotep, Azathoth. Names that send chills down the spines of millions worldwide. Cosmic entities that defy human comprehension. Ancient gods slumbering in dimensions beyond our perceived reality. But here's the thing nobody tells you. HP. Lovecraft didn't pull these horrors out of thin air. What if the most influential horror writer of the 20th century wasn't inventing nightmares, but documenting something for older? What if his fictional pantheon was built on forbidden grimoires, secret societies, and occult traditions that have survived for centuries in the shadows? The truth behind the elder gods isn't just darker than you think, it's uncomfortably real. The materialist who summoned gods. Howard Phillips Lovecraft was born in 1890 into a bloodline marked by madness and mystery. His father died confined to a psychiatric institution when Howard was just 8 years old. His mother suffered recurring nervous breakdowns until she too was institutionalized, dying years later within those same walls. Lovecraft grew up isolated, surrounded by ancient texts in his grandfather's personal library. By age 5, he was already reading astronomy, chemistry, and classical mythology. By 6, he was writing his first horror tales. But here's where it gets strange. Lovecraft was a hardcore materialist. He publicly rejected every form of spirituality, religion, and occultism. In his letters, over 100,000 of them written throughout his lifetime, he made it crystal clear that he considered mysticism a childish delusion, a refuge for weak minds unable to face the cold indifference of the cosmos. So how did a man who despised the occult create the most powerful and terrifying pantheon in horror literature, a mythological system that reads like it was ripped straight from medieval grimoires and forbidden Gnostic texts? The answer lies in the shadows he pretended to ignore, the forbidden sources, where the elder gods really came from. Lovecraft may have denied believing in magic, but he studied humanity's occult systems obsessively. His stories are packed with direct references to real esoteric works. The Necronomicon, that cursed tome appearing in virtually every one of his tales, is presented as an Arabic manuscript written by the mad Arab Abdul el-Hazd. While the Necronomicon itself is fictional, Lovecraft constructed it as a dark parody of actual texts, among them the Key of Solomon, medieval grimoires of demonic invocation, and the Picatrix, a manual of astral magic used by occultists for centuries. More than that, Lovecraft drew directly from Gnostic philosophy. Gnosticism teaches that the universe was created by an evil or ignorant god, the Demiurge, and that beyond it exist higher entities, incomprehensible beings that care nothing for humanity. This is, essentially, the framework of the Cthulhu Mythos, ancient gods indifferent to human suffering, cosmic forces that existed before creation and will continue existing long after all life is extinct. He also found inspiration in Lord Dunsany, an Irish writer obsessed with lost mythologies and forgotten gods. Dunsany created entire pantheons of fictional deities, but with an aura of ritualistic authenticity. Lovecraft read Dunsany compulsively and decided to go further, create not just gods, but a complete system of cults, forbidden texts, secret bloodlines, and summoning rituals. And then came Aleister Crowley. Crowley, sex, magic, and cosmic horror. Aleister Crowley, the most infamous figure in modern occultism, was at the peak of his notoriety when Lovecraft began writing. Crowley founded the religion of Thelema, created sex magic rituals, claimed to have made contact with extraterrestrial entities in Egypt, and published texts combining Kabbalah, Tantra, alchemy, and demonic invocations. He called himself the Beast 666 and declared war against Christianity, Victorian morality, and any form of institutionalized spiritual control. Lovecraft hated Crowley. In his letters, he called the occultist a charlatan, degenerate, and fraud, but he also recognized the disturbing power of Crowley's ideas. Because Crowley said something revolutionary for his time, that gods weren't benevolent or moral entities, but raw forces of power and chaos. That magic wasn't about prayer or devotion, but about opening portals to dimensions beyond human comprehension. That certain invocations could bring back entities dormant since before civilization. And that this aesthetic of ritualistic horror, of dangerous invocation, of knowledge that destroys whoever obtains it permeates every Lovecraft story. In The Call of Cthulhu, the protagonist discovers a global cult performing blood rituals to awaken a god sleeping at the bottom of the ocean. In the Dunwich Horror, a sorcerer uses a grimoire to summon an interdimensional entity and sire a monstrous offspring. In The Shadow Out of Time, the very pursuit of forbidden knowledge leads to madness and possession. Crowley preached that every man and every woman is a star, and that true individual should transcend all morality. Lovecraft, on the other hand, showed that transcending human morality was the direct path to humanity's destruction. If this dive into the darkness is resonating with you, hit that like button right now. It helps me keep bringing this kind of unfiltered, deep content your way. Theosophy, hidden masters, and the pre-human races. But Crowley wasn't Lovecraft's only occult influence. The Theosophical Society, founded by Helena Blavatsky in 1875, popularized a radical vision of human history, that technologically advanced civilizations existed millions of years ago, were destroyed by cosmic cataclysms, and left behind occult knowledge guarded by ascended masters. Blavatsky spoke of Lemuria, Atlantis, pre-human races, sunken cities, books of forbidden wisdom, and the existence of higher entities guiding humanity's destiny from the shadows. Lovecraft read all of this and turned it into horror. In his tales, alien civilizations came to Earth before humans. The Elder Things, a race of extraterrestrial beings, built colossal cities in Antarctica millions of years before humanity emerged. They created artificial life, the Shoggoths, who eventually rebelled against their creators. The idea of previous races and lost knowledge was central to Theosophy, but while Blavatsky saw this as a spiritual journey of evolution, Lovecraft transformed it into a narrative of extinction, enslavement, and inevitable cosmic horror. Even more disturbing, Lovecraft placed this knowledge in books. The Necronomicon, the Narcotic manuscripts, the Book of Ibn, fictional texts that seemed too real. So much so that, decades after his death, actual occultists began creating physical versions of these grimoires and using them in rituals. The Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn and dimensional portals. In the late 19th century, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn became one of the most influential secret societies in Western occultism. Among its members, Aleister Crowley, William Butler Yeats, Arthur Machen, and dozens of intellectuals obsessed with ceremonial magic. The Golden Dawn taught that through precise rituals, geometric symbols, and invocations in ancient languages, it was possible to open portals to other dimensions and contact non-human entities. They believed these entities, called higher intelligences, could grant power, knowledge, and control over reality. But they also warned that contacting these forces without proper preparation resulted in madness, possession, or death. Lovecraft was never a member of any secret society, but he knew these stories, and he twisted them to create something even more terrifying. The idea that there are no benevolent higher intelligences, only chaotic, indifferent forces that, if awakened, would annihilate humanity without even noticing. In Through the Gates of the Silver Key, Lovecraft describes rituals that allow passage through time and space, but which reveal an unbearable truth. The universe is empty, purposeless, and human consciousness is merely an insignificant accident. This cosmic nihilism was Lovecraft's answer to the Golden Dawn's optimistic mysticism. If portals exist, he said, they don't lead to paradise, they lead to the abyss. Arthur Machen's influence and ritualistic horror. Arthur Machen, a Welsh writer contemporary with Lovecraft, wrote tales mixing horror, occultism, and Celtic mythology. His most famous work, The Great God Pan, describes secret rituals performed by an occult society to summon ancient entity and bring back dormant pagan forces. Lovecraft was obsessed with Machen. In several letters, he declared that Machen was the absolute master of supernatural horror, and that his approach to ritualistic terror was unsurpassed. But Lovecraft went further. While Machen confined his horrors to European folklore, Lovecraft created a global mythology, cults in New England, in the South Pacific, in Arabia, in Antarctica. His rituals didn't invoke local gods, they invoked cosmic forces that transcended any culture or era. And here's the key point: Lovecraft transformed occultism into science fiction. His gods weren't supernatural beings, but extraterrestrial entities from other dimensions. His sorcerers weren't mystics, but scientists who discovered truths about the structure of the universe that the human mind wasn't designed to comprehend. This fusion of occultism and cosmicism created a new literary genre and influenced everything from Stephen King to the cyberpunk culture of the 90s and today's cosmic horror thrillers. The occult legacy: when fiction becomes ritual, and then something bizarre happened. Decades after Lovecraft's death in 1937, actual occultists began using his writings as ritualistic texts. The Necronomicon, a completely fictional book, gained multiple physical versions written by modern magicians. The most famous was published in 1977 by Simon, an anonymous occultist who claimed to have discovered the original manuscript in a monastery in Bosnia. The book became a bestseller, selling over 1 million copies, and began being used in actual ceremonial magic rituals. Occult groups created cults based on the Cthulhu Mythos. Real secret societies adopted the names of Lovecraft's fictional gods. And chaos magicians, a postmodern current of occultism that rejects truth in favor of efficacy, began invoking Cthulhu, Nyarlathotep, and Azathoth as if they were real entities. Their argument? It doesn't matter if a god is real or fictional. If collective belief in an entity generates psychological, emotional, or ritual results, then that entity exists. Lovecraft, the materialist who denied all forms of magic, inadvertently created one of the most powerful occult pantheons of the 20th century. Why Lovecraft's gods still haunt the 21st century today. The Cthulhu Mythos is everywhere. Video games like Bloodborne and Call of Cthulhu sell millions of copies exploring Lovecraftian cosmic horror. Series like True Detective and Stranger Things incorporate direct aesthetic and symbolism from his tales. Even Silicon Valley's tech culture, with its obsession with AI, technological singularity, and post-human transcendence, echoes the Lovecraftian nightmare that the evolution of intelligence might lead not to enlightenment, but to extinction. Because deep down, Lovecraft touched something primal, the fear that we're not the protagonists of the story, that greater forces, older and infinitely more powerful than us, exist and don't care. And perhaps the most disturbing question of all isn't where did Lovecraft's elder gods come from, but rather, what if he didn't actually invent them? What if, while scouring forbidden texts, medieval grimoires, forgotten mythologies, and Gnostic philosophies, Lovecraft simply rediscovered something that was always there waiting? If this video made you question the line between fiction and ritual, between imagination and invocation, drop a comment. What's the one forbidden book you'd never dare open? And share this with anyone else searching for knowledge beyond the veil.